which brings us to two bills sponsored by Representative Diaz, the first of which is 5293. It's an act related to domestic relations, divorce and separation, child support in particular. It extends child support obligations for non-custodial parents beyond emancipation if the child or the children are attending a 2 or 4 year college and still reside with the custodial parent until the age of 22. Representative Diaz, are you available? Oh. I thought she was on, Roberta.
She was. I just texted her to ask her to get back on.
Okay. Grace, if you're still on, I introduced House Bill 5293 in reference to the child support issues. You're free to testify now. She's not there? All right.
I'm here.
Oh, there you
yes,
go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the Judiciary Committee. For 3 years in the role, if I count COVID year, because I don't like to include 2020, I'm introducing this bill on behalf of a group of parents who believe our children deserve to continue college education. And the reason is, and I experienced that at the personal level, some parents, they waiting for the kids reach the 18 years old, and then they know they don't have any legal responsibility to keep supporting the children. In some cases, some children, they live with the mother or one of the parents, and they're not able to support them to continue college education, while other parents is able to provide because financial situation allowing them to do that. So what the bill does is asking the court to continue the child support if one of the parents who has obligation to pay child support is able to continue to supporting the child until they reach the 20 years old and they are in the school, they're not working, and the family experience a financial situation, they're not able to support the students. So I think it's fair when the students want to continue college education and one of the parents is able to do, but the law is not supporting them to continue. So I love this bill. I hope you understand it. I hope it's something that many people who love to support education in Rhode Island understand that kids come first and education is something that we try to promote no matter what. And that's just another great opportunity to asking parents to continue to support children while they are in college. Thank you, members and chair of the Judiciary Committee.
Thank you very much, Representative Diaz. Any questions? Carol?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Grace, for this bill. Did you copy this from Massachusetts? Because they do this in Massachusetts. And it has
I don't have any knowledge. I'm sorry that if there's a copy of Massachusetts, but I'm doing that for 3 or 4 years already. I'm working with a group of parents, especially one mother who experienced to see her child not able to continue college education because he was not working and they don't have enough money to pay. And I believe she will testify tonight, and you can ask them the same question.
I just want to say that I think it's a good bill, and I've encountered it in many situations with families that I've represented that have gotten divorced, and the child continues on to college, and the parent that's supposed to pay the child support no longer supports the child, and in many instances, it stops the child from being able to afford an education, and especially when a parent can afford to do so. So I'd be very supportive of this. It works well in Massachusetts, and I think it's high time we do it here. So thank you, Grace.
Thank you so much, Reb. I love to work with you.
Great. All right, any more questions? Oh, Jose.
Representative Diaz?
My pleasure, Batista.
I wanted to express my support for this bill as well. However, I wanted to draw attention to a letter that was written to us by the ACLU, and I think they bring up a good point. There's a provision in this bill that says, separate from supporting children who are still in college, or I guess young adults who are still in college, there's a part of this bill that says that even if the parents agree together to waive any arrears, this bill does not let them do that. In other words, it tells the court not to waive any arrears, even if the parents agree. And I've been in situations where I've represented folks who want to clear any arrears. Part of the reason could be unemployment, low income. And so I'm wondering if, I don't know if this is something now, but I'd be happy to work with you too to see if we can do anything to be more flexible about that. Because as you know, given the fact that the districts that you and I represent are very similar, economic hardship is a very real issue. And if we have a situation, again, emphasizing where both parents agree to waive arrears, I think that they should be able to do that. And so maybe we can continue that conversation.
I understand and I agree with you, and I read the testimony from CLU, and I'm willing to work with you, and I think it makes sense to make sure in case of hardship and the parents are not able to help in that moment, the law supporting the parents too. So I'm open to work with you in this part of the language.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions? I believe there's one witness that is wishing to testify, Monica Vaca. Is Monica on the line? Monica?
Hi.
Hi, you're on the line. You're testifying before the House Judiciary Committee live. You can proceed.
Hello,
Yep.
committee. My name is Monica Vaca. I am a North Providence resident. I have two children, age 20 and 22. I wanted to testify that I am in favor of this bill and that I would like to amend the current law. And the reasons for that is I have two children who are in college currently. I'm still nervous even though I can't see you. This is so crazy. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. This is the third time that I have testified on behalf of this bill with Grace Diaz. I was divorced in 2006, and during my divorce proceedings, I did request directly to the judge to include or consider including a college tuition clause for our children. My attorney did debate and fight for this to be included in their divorce decree, but the judge said unless my soon-to-be ex-husband agreed, due to the law and the language around children after the age of 18, he could not enforce or include it in our divorce agreement. My ex-husband absolutely refused to include any language around college education for our children. My ex-husband is a graduate of URI, and his education was paid for by his parents. No loans or debt when he graduated. His father was a blue-collar worker and worked his whole career in a body shop, and his mother was a homemaker. They had a very limited income, but they did believe that a college education was very important for their son. That sentiment, even though it was a long time ago, is the same for most families now. We all see that a higher education is important for our children. I want to be clear that this amendment to the law that's in place now will have no impact on my life. I have been working two jobs to pay for my kids to go to college. My son just graduated in June from Curry College in Milton, Massachusetts. He's a finance major. My daughter is currently a junior at Manhattan School of Music. They're both very active, he was very active in school and sports and clubs and all that. They both were very good in school, in high school and in college. Both were on dean lists, and thankfully, they also have part-time jobs during the school year. Both my kids work full-time during the summer. so that they have money for themselves during the year so that they can buy things that I am frankly not able to provide. I think it's also important to mention that my kids did go out of state for school because they received the most merit scholarships for the schools that they applied to, and that was the best option for our family. When they both graduate, my son just did, they will both have about $40,000 in student loan debt when they complete and they're done. Unfortunately, I also graduated in 2011 from WIC, and I have about $50,000 in student loan debt. So student loan debt is a hot topic right now. I know that there's a lot of noise around it with the new administration and, canceling out debt. I think that that's a good thing to a certain extent. But one of the reasons that I'm here talking to you today is because I think that we all have something that we should be contributing. It's not just on taxpayers, it's not just on the parents, it's not just on the students, it's not on the states or the schools. Everyone has to come together and make this work. In the last few years, I have done a lot of research on the impact that children of divorced parents and going through college. Sadly, there are many articles on the subject. Children of divorced parents are in many ways marginalized due to their custodial parent financial situation. I understand the underlying implications because there are many things that they can't participate in. There's limited incomes. Sometimes they have other families. They remarry and there's other children. But I do think that changing this law so that the child support extends while they are in college is important, because even though I'm using air quotes, you can't see me, but they're adults, they still need a winter coat. They still need new sneakers. They still need things that they can't buy with their pocket money. For example, my son was 5'10" when he graduated from high school. He is almost 6'2" now. In those 4 years, he needed new clothes. And those are the kinds of things that this would contribute to, not only, to their college, but they just need to live. They need to be a part of life. But there's just things that happen, and you need to help them the best that we can. I do also want to mention that the federal government does ask that all students, college students, fill out a FAFSA. I personally do utilize the RISLA office here in Rhode Island to make sure that we do everything appropriately and that we complete the FAFSA completely. The people at the RISLA office are very familiar with this situation and the hardships that single parents face when it comes to financial aid. The FAFSA advises children with divorced parents. It actually says it in the application to please talk to your parents about contributing, and helping with the finances of tuition and room and board and, everything that goes along with it, books. Both of my children did actually have conversations with him, my ex-husband, their dad, and he absolutely refused. He has been working for the state of Rhode Island in the court system for the last 20 years. So he has a job. He's able, maybe not to complete, pay for the whole thing. And that's not what I'm trying to say here, but he had the ability to contribute. The federal government does assume that a student's parent is going to help them with their education, at least in part. And they do make accommodations on the form for real situations when parents, are not able, they're out of a job or they're disabled or they don't have enough money or they're incarcerated or there are bits in that FAFSA to help people and students, give the FAFSA form a very clear picture of their financial need, if you will. So all the information is captured in the FAFSA to make sure that it is clear. I personally do believe that the higher education comes in many forms. It doesn't necessarily have to be a business degree, which my son has now. I think that we need our young people to have a skill to feel proud of, to contribute to our society. They're going to become the citizens, the voters that come up in society. We need plumbers, electricians, radiologists, dental hygienists, police, firefighters, hairdressers, everybody. All of these fields require some kind of education, and that education is not free. We need to help our kids. We need our kids to also stay in the state and contribute to our state and become the upstanding citizens that will give back to our state and make our economy stronger. The student loan thing is very scary. Last year, this very same week, Providence Business News published an article about household debt, and the United States student debt has increased, this was in 2019, to 1.5 trillion, and compared to 2018, which was 1.4 trillion. It's unfortunate that, $100 billion in student loan debt is also people over 60. So, as parents get older, how do you help, your kids? We all have to do something to help them and make them better. About half the student loans are in forbearance. They're bad debt, if you will. How do we help our kids buy houses for themselves? When they're 21, 22 years old and they have all this debt and they haven't even started to find a job. I mean, forget that it's a pandemic. That's a whole other problem. But I believe, and I believe this deeply, that we all have to have some skin in the game. Parents shouldn't have to bear the whole burden. The student shouldn't have to bear the whole burden. The state, schools shouldn't have to bear the whole burden. The taxpayer shouldn't have to. But if we all contribute to our children's future, they will be better citizens. I did want to point out also that of the 6 New England states, 3 states, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New Hampshire, have amended their child support laws to accommodate children of divorced parents that attend 2- or 4-year post-secondary schools and extend child support until 22 years old. These 3 states see the importance of investing in our young people, and it is important. And I'm sure a lot of you who are listening know people whose children have gone out of state to these schools. They are helping the kids get through this with, their tuition, merit scholarships, and all that. The other thing that I think is very important to say is that not every divorced couple needs a law to ensure that their children are provided for. But child support laws under 18 are there for a reason. Some parents wouldn't do anything for their children if they weren't forced to by law. And it is a reality that we have to remind grown-ups to behave and to do the right thing for their children, no matter what age. I think as parents, we do have a moral obligation to help our children as much as we can. And just because you're divorced or you reach the age of 18, you're not free from this obligation of caring for our children. Young adults still need to know that they can lean on us, have a safe place. Supporting our children into young adulthood are some of the most important years for any person. Being a supportive parent is what we need to do for our kids. Helping them make choices, career choices, choosing partners to become the citizens that we need them to be in our state.
All right, Monica, thank you very much for your testimony. I know it's heartfelt and it's so
I know, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Does anyone have questions? I do want to make sure that this is not about hurting anybody. If someone can't do it, there are reasons. They don't have a job, they're disabled, they're incarcerated, they're whatever. This is about, helping when you can, not just because the law says you don't have to.
I believe one of the committee members has a question, if you don't mind taking it. Representative.
I will do my best.
Representative Colwell.
Thank you. It's not a question. It is, I thank you for your story. I want to back up one part of your testimony, which is that when I was in grad school at URI, My assistantship was in the financial services office, which meant all day, every day, I helped students and families process their FAFSAs to come to school at URI and to get their loans. And I will say that the situation you're describing was not at all uncommon. It happened really often that kids would have to put their other parent on their FAFSA form, and that income would mean that they either weren't allowed to get government loans or that they had to get the high interest version of our government loans.
That is correct.
And so that did happen very often in the 2 years that I was there, so it's not an uncommon occurrence. So thank you for your testimony.
And that's not fair, you know? I mean, when you think about it, they shouldn't get punished for that, really.
I agree. Okay, I think that there's no other hands, so that concludes testimony on House Bill 5293.